Dark clouds covered the sky around the large castle in the wilderness. The man in the cloak quickly ran through the castle's hallways, hiding behind every corner. He carefully observed his surroundings before continuing to move. He had arrived at the room where two large statues stood near the door leading to the Demon King's room, but had no intention of entering through that door. Instead, he ran across. Stopping at one of the castle's open windows, he looked down. He saw a monster sentinel on patrol, carry an axe and wear full body armor. However, this guard was no match for someone as sneaky as him. He gently jumped down, moved forward and slit the guard's throat. He fell to the ground, dying on the spot. The man sheathed his sword and looked up at the ruins of the tall castle. Then he took a climbing hook and prepared to climb to the top. He came to a door that seemed to be covered by a magical barrier. However, the man focused his energy on his index finger and aimed at the shield, easily passing through it, shattering the glass behind it. He unlocked the lock and opened the window. Step inside and stand on the Demon King's large throne. He jumped down as the person sat on the throne, immediately noticed his presence and turned to face him. The Demon King said, "This castle has an interesting guest today, but how did you get in here and who are you?" A few hours ago, a group of people stopped to rest and discussed the next plan in the Demon King's meeting room. They all looked at the map and believed they could go straight up through the main door. However, the man in the cloak wanted to take a different path because he had the skill to do so. The whole group was shocked by his proposal, simultaneously protesting and saying that it was impossible or believe he will fall to his death. They laughed at him until the main girl in the group spoke up, attract everyone's attention again. She said they wouldn't change the original plan because that is their fighting strategy. Almeria, warrior, Seraphine, high mage, Lena, magician, and Elvie, holy knight, all four will do their best to attract the Demon King's attention. Meanwhile, Roland will hide in the shadows and use his assassination ability to finish off the Demon King. Roland asked Almeria to confirm whether she really agreed to let him be the finisher, because he thought that was the responsibility of the knight. However, Almeria is confident in his plan because it has the best chance of success. They had gone through a lot of hardships to get here, and she believed that they would not fail. Roland was silent for a moment, then said he understood. Almeria smiled at his answer and suggested that everyone rest a bit before acting together. They all went to bed before the battle. Roland appeared to be sleeping, but in reality he was only pretending. Quickly he hid his presence and found a way to sneak out of hiding. However, Almeria seemed to notice and asked him where he was going. The black-haired man smiled, said he was going out for a while. Almeria felt confused. He explained that he was just going to the bathroom and asked if she wanted to come with him. Almeria blushed and felt embarrassed asking that. She just told Roland to go quickly, wondering why he was so calm. Anyway, Roland took this opportunity to leave, but not to go to the bathroom, but facing the Demon King. When he arrived, he stood looking at the Demon King, who was about to attack him. However, Roland was ready to use all his strength to destroy her. Lightning shot out from the Demon King's hand, aimed at Roland and destroyed everything around him, scattering debris everywhere. But the lightning didn't hit him, because Roland was no longer there, and there was no trace of where he had gone. The Demon King was confused, until she noticed Roland standing behind her. She turned around and attacked again, but missed again, making her even more angry at Roland's speed. Suddenly she heard a voice asking, "When was the last time you fought in a real battle? And have you ever seen a skill like this?" The Demon King thought she had found a way, so she summoned her sword and swung it in one direction, created a large tear in the ground, seemingly dividing the entire room in half. But Roland was still not there. She smiled faintly, turned her head to look, wondering where he was, until she suddenly saw Roland just a few inches away from her, with the blade resting on his forehead. Roland withdrew his sword, causing the Demon King to fall to the ground, blood flowing from the wound on her head. She bowed low, admitted defeat, and declared that the Demon King's army would be disbanded. The survivors would be ordered to retreat and never threaten humanity again. However, Roland suddenly interrupted and said that wouldn't happen. He looked down at the woman with emotionless eyes and asked her if she had any last wishes. The Demon King looked up and smiled gently. After the exchange, Roland quickly left the castle. Almeria and the rest arrived at the Demon King's castle, only to find her lying on the ground, seemingly dead before their arrival. Roland returned to the city and was congratulated by the king. The king was surprised that the Demon King, the most powerful and evil creature in history, could be defeated so easily. The black-haired man said that it was all thanks to Almeria and the rest, as it was their efforts that helped them reach the Demon King's castle. However, the king was still impressed that Roland was able to face the Demon King directly, but Roland only said that assassins like him were strong in one matches, nothing special. He also said that he didn't use any special skills, because he believes that the possibility disappears, and temporarily hiding from all means of detection is not something unique to him. However, despite what Roland thought, the king received a report from Almeria and the rest of the group's combat abilities and strategies. The warriors in the group have improved significantly since Roland joined. They don't believe they can confront the Demon King without Roland. They themselves admitted that without Roland, they would not have been able to reach the Demon King's castle. However, Roland remained humble, making the king sigh at his humility. The king told Roland that he could receive the title of Legendary Assassin for defeating the Demon King, but Roland did not want that title. He wanted Almeria and the others to receive full credit for defeating the Demon King. The king knew this before, because Roland said it when he accepted the mission. Roland believes that at least Almeria, the first princess of the Furland Kingdom, deserves recognition. She deserves the title of genius, even though the king and her father disagree. However, the king did not want to let Roland go empty-handed, and asked him if he had any wishes to be granted. Roland knew he had a wish, but it seemed impossible. Roland's silence made the king speculate that Roland wanted to marry Almeria, causing him to panic and try to persuade Roland not to marry his daughter. But Roland immediately reassured the king that he had no intention of marrying her. The mention of Almeria reminds Roland of when the warrior once told the group that she wanted to live a normal life one day. At that time, everyone wondered about it, but Roland decided that what he wanted was a normal life. Roland does not want to continue living the life of an assassin. Instead, he just wants a peaceful life, free of tricks or deception, living like a normal person without having to worry about betrayal. A simple life was all Roland wanted, surprising the king with such an easy request. The king still tried to advise Roland that he could ask to be surrounded by women, as giving birth was one of his proudest achievements, but Roland told the king to stop. The king asked if Roland needed anything else for his new life, but Roland said no. He just thanked him. The two shook hands before Roland left the room. Outside, a cat is waiting for Roland, leaving the king confused and wondering if there are stray cats in the castle. However, this cat is not an ordinary cat. It walked down the hallway, then stopped, scratched at its necklace, caught Roland's attention. He knelt down and touched the pendant on the necklace, causing it to suddenly glow. The cat flies into the air and turns into a woman, but it's none other than Layla, whom Roland fought before. Layla sighed in relief, because she didn't think being a cat would be so unpleasant. However, she ignored that thought and continued walking with Roland. The former Demon King said that she heard Roland's wishes and couldn't believe that he had such a hard time finding what he wanted, ultimately only wanting a normal life. Layla's necklace has two abilities: transforming and reducing the owner's magical energy if it exceeds the safe threshold. After what Roland did, the Demon King's existence no longer exists. But Layla didn't resent it, because that strange person turned out to be a wonderful person in her eyes. She said that the only reason he let her live was because he didn't know how to use the necklace. But she didn't care if he treated her poorly, even sold her, because she appreciated him for removing the necklace for her. Layla calls him sweet for an assassin. Roland laughed softly and said that from now on he was no longer an assassin. The two walked out, Layla leaning on Roland's arm. She asked where they were going next, and Roland replied that they were going to a place with a normal life. But that answer made her complain because it sounded boring. Roland warns her that she will not find much joy from him. At that moment, Roland threw off his cloak and flew into the night, as if letting go of the past, becoming a new person. But Roland ponders, what is normal life? Eat, sleep, make love, then eat and sleep again. The cycle continues. However, at some point, Layla finally admits that this is not a normal life, something even a Demon King like her realizes. She leaned against Roland's chest and said that what they were doing was probably normal for human men, and she didn't hate it. She even said it's been fun since they started this cycle. Layla lies on Roland's chest and asks if humans and ghosts can develop a closer relationship through what they are doing, because it makes her feel so good. Roland looked at the girl confused and wondered if she really wanted to stay and follow him. He remembered the first time they met, when she declared that she had sworn to give everything to the one who could defeat her. Layla also said that he was simply the man worthy of being her life partner, but Roland wasn't sure if those words were sincere. As a human, he didn't know if he could understand the way a ghost lived. Roland asked Layla if she was okay, seeing that her ears were red. She only responded with a small cry and hid under the blanket, embarrassed. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, and someone called Roland by his name, Argan. Roland remembered that he had chosen that name and decided to wear the suit. The woman said she came to collect the room's rent for the week. He gave her the money and she thanked him, but couldn't help but wonder about the strange sounds coming from his room every day, no matter what time it was. As soon as she finished speaking, a cat meowed, and a cat walked out the door. Attract her attention. Roland said that she must have heard the cat meowing wrongly. The girl became confused and apologized profusely, but she still had another question to ask him, which was about his work. Roland answered frankly that all he did was eat, sleep, and make love. Roland felt confused by the girl's reaction until she explained that she was asking about his job, not what he did every day. At that time, Roland realized that normal men must have a job. This made him think that maybe he should find a job, since the money he brought with him was gone. Although he could ask King Randolph for more money, that was not the normal life he wanted. Roland told the girl that he was looking for work, and she asked if he wanted to become an adventurer, but he was not interested in that because he thought he was not healthy enough to live that life. The girl agreed, commenting that Roland's body looked fragile, and after a moment of thought, she offered him a job as an Adventurers Guild employee. When he arrived, a girl greeted him, and Roland said he came to apply for a job, causing the girl to call the manager. A woman came out and told him to follow her. Roland told the girl that he was looking for a job, and she asked if he wanted to become an adventurer. However, he was not interested in this job because he thought his body was not healthy enough to live such a life. The girl agreed, commenting that Roland's body looked quite thin. Then, after a moment of thought, she offered him a job at the Adventurers Guild. When he arrived, a girl greeted him. Roland said he came to apply for a job, causing the girl to call the manager. A woman appeared and told him to follow her. Went inside for an interview, which he did. Roland thought that just doing his best was enough. The woman's name is Iris Negan, the guild's branch director. Roland introduced himself and sat down to begin the interview. However, every question she asked was answered with no by Roland, causing Iris to sigh. And with an annoyed voice, she said that they couldn't accept just anyone. She hated his emotionlessness and monotonous answers, causing Roland to apologize and wonder how she could trust him to have experience without mentioning his previous job. She sighed and said that it didn't matter who he was or where he came from, as long as he had the ability. Therefore, she will continue the interview by evaluating his abilities. This made Roland feel more relieved, and he asked her what ability was. Iris replied that he needed to be able to use a sword, a basic understanding of magic, and the ability to examine objects and certain knowledge, regardless of what she had said before. Roland silently lifted his finger towards the window, causing Iris to turn around in confusion. He then became invisible and quickly approached her, secretly took off her underwear without her knowing, then returned to her seat as if nothing had happened. When Iris returned, Roland calmly said that he was definitely capable of what she asked for. However, she just smiled and told him not to be too complacent because he still needed to know how to change clothes quickly. Roland held up the underwear and asked if that was enough. Iris was a bit surprised at first until she realized it was hers, making her blush. She held her dress tightly and asked what kind of magic he used. But Roland knew that all he did was make use of his stealth skills. This is the first time I've stolen someone's underwear. But Roland told himself that if he had this job, he could consider himself an expert. However, he still wondered whether his actions were appropriate in a normal interview. Iris is now in a difficult situation, still unable to calm down after what just happened. Seeing this, Roland decided she might feel more comfortable if he returned her underwear. And he did. Turning his invisibility skill back on, he quietly returned her underwear. Iris realized this and became even more embarrassed. When Roland asked if he was up to the job, Iris mutters that he barely has what it takes. But Roland did not accept that answer. This made Iris grit her teeth, then shouted that she wanted to hire him and couldn't do without him. Roland smiled, satisfied with this answer, then left the building, looked up, and knew that he would continue to try to live the normal life he wanted. The next day, Roland prepares for a new day, getting dressed and putting on his glasses in preparation for the first job in his normal life. Layla, in her cat form, called him and asked where he was going today. Roland replied that he would do his usual work. Layla is glad to see that he seems satisfied with the job, but Roland reminds her to behave while he is away. She assured that there would be no problem as long as she kept using her current cat form. Roland quickly left the building and arrived at the Adventurer Guild, where he was greeted by the girl he met yesterday. The name is Milia MacGuffin. She was impressed that he passed the interview. She was impressed to see that Roland passed the interview, especially since he was directly recruited by Iris instead of through other guild facilities. This proves his excellent skills. Milia didn't ask anything else, just happy for the chance to be someone's boss, and told Roland that before starting work, she would give him a tour of the facility. Roland looked around and asked Milia about the adventurer's work. This question surprised her because she did not expect him to ask such a question. Milia explains that adventurers go on quests, from searching for materials in dangerous dungeons to hunting for treasure in exchange for money. But Roland simply summarized that adventurers were nothing more than apprentices, doing whatever was asked of them. She warns him not to say such things in the Adventurer Guild. At that time, Milia noticed a group of adventurers returning with ingredients that they were asked to collect, and she took Roland to meet a man named Morley. Morley asked Roland if he had experience as an adventurer, but Roland replied that he did not. This made Morley laugh scornfully and say that Roland should not be in the path of a C-rank adventurer like him. Milia explains that C-rank adventurers make up about 10% of the adventurer population, meaning they're usually quite strong. However, Roland seemed disappointed by the arrogance of the man who should have been as strong as Morley. Morley's job was to examine all the herbs that the expedition team had collected as required, and he believes that everything is complete. However, Roland realized that some other herbs were mixed with the emoguso leaves required by the quest. This made Morley angry, and he began to scold Roland, claiming to be a master of plants and demanding that Roland apologize. But Roland simply picked up 2 leaves and compared them, showing that one leaf has black spots and the other does not. Leaves with black spots are called Sorire, and there is no antidote, causing Morley to realize that only half of the herbs he collected were suitable for the mission's requirements. Morley got angry and tried to punch Roland, but Roland quickly moved aside, causing Morley to fall to the ground, embarrassed to knock on the door and leave. Milia breathed a sigh of relief and seemed impressed with Roland's knowledge, but Roland simply said that failure to complete the mission could result in death. Roland said a few more things that confused Milia, but then she laughed because he thought Roland was funny with his jokes. However, Roland just silently noted that the way people here worked was different from what he was used to. The next day, Roland is assigned to clean a corner of the room, and Milia intends to help him, but Morley stopped him, saying there was no need to help Roland because Iris would soon fire him. Milia reluctantly left. Roland returned to the chaos and was almost happy with this mundane task. While working, a voice rang out. Roland realizes that Layla has followed him out of boredom. I tried to focus on work, but heard people talking about the people who defeated the Monster King. He was worried that as a result, the number of monster extermination quests might decrease, causing his business to suffer. Roland wondered if Almeria and the others were busy celebrating the kingdom's victory in the parade. Layla asked him if he was really okay with not participating, but Roland insisted that he was fine, making her sigh and think that it was a waste of his perseverance. A while later, Roland finished cleaning up. Impresses Milia with his working speed. She invited him to lunch during break. While eating, Roland saw a person comes through the back door, caught his attention, and he went to check. He immediately faced a group of mercenaries. They are angry because they did not receive the materials they had collected before. Roland notices Morley watching from afar. But I don't want to get involved in this, and tried to leave. This angers the group's leader, and he tries to hit Roland. Roland knew that if he was caught using violence against this group, he would be in trouble, which was why Morley was watching from a nearby corner. Instead of reacting, Roland decided to let the punch hit him, in such a way that the man's finger would break without him having to do anything. He called another member of the group to try, but Roland didn't want to waste any time. When you can eat lunch properly and get back to work, use stealth skills. Roland takes out all the men in the area. The last person, the girl in the group, asked who he was. She knew Roland was no ordinary employee, but her thoughts were interrupted when Roland pushed her against the wall and began seducing her. Morley wakes up and doesn't understand what happened, until he looked around the corner after hearing a noise. He is horrified and confused when he sees Roland and the girl in a passionate scene. Morley stared in shock, not understanding how or why things were like this. What confused him even more was that the girl, Tanya, was someone Morley had feelings for, but now all opportunities for development are gone. After lunch, Roland returned to work. Malia told him that the new employee would work at the front desk before being assigned to a more suitable job. She gave him a notebook to remember, but Roland seemed to have memorized the whole thing in just a few seconds. Roland did not reveal this to Malia. She went to the front desk to assist guests, while Roland watched to learn. A man walked in and said he was looking for a mission. Malia asked him for identification documents, and when he took it out, his actions seemed strange and hasty, which caught Roland's attention. The man requested to complete all D-rank missions for the day. Roland looked closely at the papers and told Malia that they were fake, explaining that they were changed by magic, and the man is also acting strangely. The man began to lose patience, but Malia remained adamant and said that his documents were fake. However, the man insisted that they were real, and he said everything would be fine if she just apologized. Malia apologized to the man, but that didn't solve the problem. Roland decided to take matters into his own hands, use fire magic on the paper. A protective layer appears around the paper, but this only exposes the forgery. Roland intensified the fire to successfully burn the paper, causing the man to scream in anger and admit that it had cost him a lot of money. The man realized his mistake when Roland explained that all his goods would become useless. Roland felt disappointed by the paper's poor forgery skills, because if it were me, I would choose a true identity from one of my victims that would be harder to detect if someone got hold of the real documents. Roland told the man that he was lucky he was a mercenary, not an assassin. Otherwise, he would have been killed. Although the statement seemed cool, everyone around was confused by Roland's words. Malia remembers that they need to contact the knights. The man tried to run away, but Roland quickly restrained him, making the capture of the knights easier. At the end of the day, Malia admired Roland's skills and thanked him, but Roland said there was no need to thank him. He just wanted to make sure she wasn't hurt. This made her heart beat faster, and she looked at him with dreamy eyes. Roland realizes that he needs to try harder to become normal. The next day, Morley tried to invite Malia out to eat because it was her day off, but unfortunately, the girl said she already had plans. This makes Morley angry. In frustration, while Roland was still busy with his usual cleaning chores, Amelia approached him and curiously asked where he lived. Roland replied that he was staying at an inn. This surprised Malia because normal people usually have homes near their workplaces. This makes Roland realize that he should have a house to live a normal life, but I never thought about that, because he never had to worry about a long-term residence due to the nature of his previous job. Malia was curious if Roland was eating properly since moving here, but Layla only finds this action annoying and noisy. Malia heard a woman's voice, but saw no one around, which confused her. However, she quickly returned to the main topic and said that she could guide Roland to find the ideal house, because she is a local. When she left, Roland felt a bit confused, because Malia had told Morley earlier that she was busy tomorrow. Layla explains that Malia just refused gently, because that's what girls usually do. Makes Roland think that being a woman is really tiring. The next day, Roland and Malia met in front of the guild. The girl tried to pet Layla because she was in cat form, but Layla just ignored Malia, leaving her shocked by that action. However, Malia quickly brushed it off and focused on leading Roland to the first house. But Layla doesn't seem to like this place, so they continued searching. After looking at many houses, they finally discovered a long, abandoned house that once belonged to a mercenary, but anyone who tries to live there mysteriously disappears. Although Malia was worried, Roland and Layla seemed satisfied with the place and decided to check inside. However, the two suddenly felt something and told Malia to wait outside. When they entered, they discovered a room emitting a gloomy aura, and a black ghost is floating inside. Layla tells Roland to handle this calmly. He concentrated magic into his hand and punched the ghost, destroy it in just a few seconds. Then, a stone fell to the ground. Malia walked in, worried after hearing strange noises. Roland quickly changed the subject and said he would accept the house, explained that he had no luggage for Malia to help move in. However, Malia still wanted to spend time with the black-haired man and insisted that she cook him a lunch, then hurried away before he could answer. Roland then touched the necklace, and Layla returns to her true form. She felt embarrassed when Roland suggested they both do the housework. Layla shyly reminds that Malia could come back at any time. Roland replies that they should finish the cleanup before that happens. Layla leaned in to kiss him, but then realized it was just a misunderstanding. Roland was actually just assigning her the areas that needed cleaning, and he would take care of the rest. This makes Layla uncomfortable. She pushed him away and walked away until she accidentally fell through the floor, causing Roland to sigh. Most of the cleanup work has been completed. Malia turned back with an impressed expression. Put down lunch. Roland introduces Layla to Malia, but the girl seems a bit scared because Layla is a monster. Roland reassures Malia that Layla cannot use magic, calmed the girl down until she saw Layla eating lunch. They enjoy meals together. Malia then offers to help Roland clean up the rest of the house. Although Layla doesn't like the idea, Roland agrees. When two girls clean together in one room, Malia notices that Layla is having difficulty and tease her, causing Layla to get upset and try to summon one of her allies from the darkness. However, nothing happened, causing Malia to tease Layla even more. After a period of fussing and cleaning up, the house is finally cleaner and tidier. Afterwards, Malia decided to invite Roland to her house for dinner, because she thought that preparing meals in the new house would take a long time. Although Layla did not want to go, Roland did not object to the idea. On the way, Malia asked about the strange noise she heard earlier, and Roland explains that it is because he defeated a black ghost. This surprised Malia because it was a B-rank monster, and she began to wonder how strong Roland was. Although Roland tried to assert that he was just an ordinary person, Malia had little faith in that. Finally, they arrived at Milia's house, and Roland meets her family. This makes him feel great. The black-haired man told Milia's father that life in the city was wonderful, even with his stories of adventure. However, the old man laughed loudly and said that the life of a normal person is very different, finding a partner, getting married, and raising children. Roland heard this and remembered quietly, while Milia's father looked curious and asked if Roland received many invitations from women because of his personality and appearance. Roland smiled, remembering someone. After leaving, he returned to his new home. Layla complains about him coming home late, but Roland interrupted her with a kiss, implying that they will actually do it this time. The next day, Roland went to work again. Hello, Amelia, who said he should try working at the delivery counter today. A man known as Nil, according to his fake ID, walked up to the counter, wanted to accept a D-rank quest. It seemed like he had been avoiding those missions for a long time. Roland looked up at the price and found a quest that involved destroying a bird named Killer Falcon. However, I would like to have one more opinion. So he asked Malia if this mission was too difficult for D-rank mercenaries. Malia didn't see any problem since D-rank mercenaries had requested similar missions before. Morley tries to cut in and says they should let the mercenaries do what they want, but both Roland and Malia ignored him and continued discussing this issue. In the end, they decided to help the mercenary Nil make a decision. Nil accepted the mission and left. However, Roland felt he couldn't let it stop there and asked Malia to take over the counter for him for a moment, while he prepared to leave to monitor the situation. Iris caught Roland as he was about to leave and asked him where he was going. Roland explained that he was going to check on the mercenary who had just accepted the mission he was in charge of. However, Iris wanted to remind him that there were new rumors spreading in the guild about him, and she had also learned more about his past. Roland doesn't care too much about this because he just wants to be a normal employee and keep walking. Before leaving, Roland decided to tease Iris a bit and asked if she had checked her underwear today, making her blush and feel uncomfortable. As they passed through the city, Roland remembered Layla saying that his glasses completely changed his appearance and personality. So he put his glasses in his pocket. He continued walking towards an area in the forest, where Nil is on assignment. As expected, Roland saw Nil trying to shoot an arrow at the big bird, but Killer Falcon easily dodged all the arrows and rushed straight towards Nil. Roland realizes that the situation is becoming dangerous due to Nil's mistakes. So he walked closer to the archer and started giving some advice. Seems to point out the Killer Falcon's weakness. The bird's main weakness is when it is aiming at its prey, especially prey that moves like humans. Killer Falcon is targeting Nil, and Roland suggested that Nil should let the bird swoop down near him for a chance to shoot it down, because that's the only way he can do it. Roland tells Nil that if he doesn't have the courage to shoot a creature like this, he should give up archery. Nil slapped his face to encourage himself and decided to try Roland's plan. He stood there patiently while Killer Falcon swoops down to attack. Even though my heart is filled with fear, Nil concentrated with all his might and shot an arrow, hitting the bird as it charged. Roland left with a smug smile. When he returned to the guild, Roland put on his glasses and saw Amelia with teary eyes. "Because I'm worried about you." Iris told her that he had gone to the bathroom and don't go out for an hour. Roland reassures Amelia that everything is fine. Morley tried to cut in again to attract Amelia's attention, and prove herself superior to Roland, but they ignored him and continued their work. Roland continued to help the mercenaries with their missions, and it looks like the workday is almost over until he saw a familiar man. Walked in, carrying Killer Falcon's feathers, proving that Nil completed the task successfully. Roland compliments Nil when the archer admits that he still has a lot to learn. Nil whispered thanks to Roland in his ear, but Roland pretended not to understand and asked why Nil thanked him. Nil just laughed and ignored, then walked out of the guild. Roland realized that maybe he should change his hairstyle next time to make a new impression. A new day, a new chance to make a good impression at work. At lunch break, Milia was eating with several female colleagues. During the conversation, one of them asked about the wonderful rookie, and Milia understood that they were referring to Roland. When she heard that mercenaries had asked Roland to take charge of their mission, she was not surprised. Another girl at the dinner table said she heard Roland defeated a grizzly bear and saved another mercenary. This surprised the rest of the girls, as the grizzly was a creature equivalent to an A rank. Milia quickly confirmed that it was true, as she had witnessed it with her own eyes. The remaining two girls were confused and curious about how and why Roland was able to do that. Milia retold the story, only to discover that the original mission she had arranged was wrong, just a request to collect resin from the Kun flower, a seemingly easy task that is classified as an E-rank quest. However, it had been a while since this quest was assigned, and the guild had not received any contact from the mercenary who accepted the quest. So Roland and Milia decided to go out and look for that mercenary. The other girls wonder why Roland, a new recruit, was sent out in this situation. Milia explains that it was a direct order from the branch manager, Iris, meaning that Roland is not just an ordinary employee. Not only were Roland and Milia, but Roland also brought his cat. One of the girls got excited talking about her cute cat and ate a lot of her homemade cookies, even though the cat always ignores her, no matter what she does. She wondered how to make the cat like her more, but the other two girls sweat dropped and wondered if this was the right time to talk about cats when they were on a rescue mission. Roland and Milia walk through the forest as she takes out the map, worried about where they are, but Roland seems to know the way after remembering every detail of the quest. Even though he had never been to this area before, he was able to go straight to his destination without getting lost after just one look at the map. Although this ability is amazing, Roland claims that he will forget everything by the next morning. Whether this is true or not is unknown. Suddenly, Milia mentioned that Roland could monologue in both male and female voices, but she didn't know that he was actually just talking to Layla. Back to the main story, Milia was asked if she had encountered a grizzly bear, but she was told to wait at the door. However, it only took Roland about half an hour to return after completing the extermination mission, which surprised the other girls that he completed the mission in such a short time. Milia revised the story, saying it appeared the grizzly had found its cub, and it was over before any confrontation occurred. The voice echoed throughout the guild building, causing Milia to raise her head in recognition. She then walked out into the lobby to meet the person who asked if anyone was there. And she confirmed that there were employees working, but explained that they were still on their lunch break. She recognized the boy standing in front of her as the person Roland had saved yesterday. The boy went to look for Roland, but Milia told him that Roland had gone out to lunch. However, at that moment, Roland walked in the door while they were chatting. The boy was happy to see Roland again, thanking him for what he did in the cave the previous day. Roland patted the boy's head and told him to be more careful next time. The three female staff members, including Milia, watched with eyes of admiration and affection. As Roland waved goodbye to the boy, he felt surprised to be thanked. Even though he didn't defeat anyone in that mission, Roland continues his normal work every day and regularly meets many people, ask him for help or even give him tasks. Ever since Layla followed him to the guild, she always lied under the table to stay close and watch him work every day. She noticed that Roland often became everyone's errand boy and asked if he was bored. Roland replied that it was a normal part of the job, making Layla sigh and feel annoyed as she was starting to tire of that familiar answer. Suddenly, Roland heard Milia's voice. She was talking about a matter that could cause trouble. He noticed Milia talking to three mercenaries. After that, she walked towards the bookshelf near Roland with a tired expression. She muttered that there was still one person who hadn't joined the team and was trying to find something. Roland asked if there was any problem. Milia explained that there is a mercenary team that hasn't gathered enough members for the mission to destroy C-class monsters. Milia remembers that the quest area is near the village where Roland used to go, and recently there have been a lot of monsters appearing around the area near that village. Roland looks closely at the mission board, while Malia explains that the mission's requirements may be too dangerous to do alone, so it is marked with the condition of having a team. However, the mercenary team participating in the mission still lacked one person to meet the minimum number of members. And today is the last day of the recruitment period, before the guild transfers quests to other branches. She smiled brightly when mentioning Roland's ability to remember details. Suddenly, a voice called Roland. It was Nil, the archer that Roland helped before. Nil happily calls Roland brother, and eagerly asks if he can come with them on the trip, making Roland feel confused and hesitant. Malia also agreed that it would be safer if Roland joined, but Roland wasn't sure if a staff member was allowed to participate in a group mission. Malia thought for a moment, then suddenly came up with an idea, and told the two to wait for her a moment so she could consult with the Despised to the branch manager. She immediately ran away before Roland could say anything. While Nil thanked Malia for her support, Iris entered the comfort room and said there was no problem. When Roland joins the mission, he remains silent, causing Iris to tease him and ask if he lacks confidence. Roland replied that it wasn't, but Iris already knew that, because she knew very well that he was capable of defeating a legendary monster alone. That legendary monster, Layla, was yawning under the table. Iris tells Roland that he shouldn't let being an employee get in the way of his duties. She also affirmed that they completely trust him. This surprised everyone in the room, and couldn't believe that the branch manager trusted Roland so much. They have a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of speculation. But that didn't matter, because Roland decided to accept, because this was a direct order from Iris. Malia witnessed the exchange and began to feel uncomfortable, even a little jealous, thinking that the relationship between Roland and Iris was becoming suspicious. The group leaves the room, and Roland introduces himself to the other mercenaries, but the two other than Nil show disdain for Roland. They expressed disappointment and asked him not to hinder them. Nil, filled with excitement, told Roland that it was an honor to fight alongside him, but Roland immediately told Nil not to call him brother. Nil then decides to call him master, but Roland doesn't want to be called that. Finally, the group started moving towards their destination. Nil and the others started talking about past achievements, causing Roland to realize that the group is only working together temporarily for this mission. He asked about each person's rank, and learned that the spear user and the healer were both C-rank mercenaries, while Nil was only D-rank. The spear user asked what Roland had done, but Roland only replied that what he did was completely normal, causing him to snort in contempt and continue his journey. However, Roland told them to leave quickly. This confuses the rest and angers the healer, as he declares himself the group's leader. Roland explains that there was smoke coming from the direction of the village, but the others just assumed it was the villagers burning wood. However, a sudden roar rang out when a wolf-like creature rushed towards them. Roland noticed it and told everyone to stay calm, while wondering if he should kill it quickly, but immediately reminded myself that it wasn't something a normal employee should do. Roland began to explain that the creature was a red wolf, agile and has strong attack power. The healer thinks the best strategy is for the front line to reach the creature first, making it easier for the archers to shoot it down. However, spear users had no intention of approaching the wolf and began to run away when the wolf rushed towards him. Roland quickly grabbed him and slapped him hard on the back of the head, said he would die if he continued with that attitude. Roland directed the spear wielder to lower the spear to waist level, while maintaining eye contact with the red wolf. After a moment of hesitation, the spear user finally obeyed and stood his ground, although his body trembled with fear. Upon seeing the spear, the red wolf stopped and began to circle around, keeping a safe distance. Roland then called Nil to shoot some arrows, causing the wolf to be blind in one eye and unable to attack. Roland ordered the spear user to charge forward and hit the wolf hard in the jaw. Finally, the monster was destroyed, and the spear wielder fell to the ground, sobbing in fear. The spear user looked up at Roland, thanking him profusely for what he had done. Both Nil and the spear user called Roland brother again. Meanwhile, the healer was still shaken by what had just happened. Roland noticed this and approached to ask if he could give him advice when needed, and this time, the healer agreed immediately. The group continues their journey, while Roland ponders the strange thing and wondered why the red wolf appeared here, since his natural habitat was far to the south. However, these thoughts were quickly forgotten when they finally reached the village, which seemed to be covered in fire. The group rushed into the burning village and began helping to extinguish the fire as quickly as possible. Roland also quickly grabbed a bucket of water and extinguished the nearby fire. At that time, the spear user approached with 2 buckets of water in hand, informing Roland that the villagers said there was a fire was caused by a lizard-like monster. Roland, with black hair, immediately realized that if the fire was caused by a lizard, then the monster was probably a salamander. He knew that the current group would not be able to deal with this creature. So he told them to continue helping the others put out the fire, and he would deal with the monster himself. He started walking towards the forest, leaving buckets of water behind and track traces on the ground to a specific area. After a while, Roland finally caught up with the salamander. The monster was startled when it discovered his presence. The creature turned its head, saw Roland, and immediately opened its mouth. Creates a small spark in his mouth before spitting out a large stream of fire. However, Roland stood still and endured the fire, and with just one swing of his hand, he slashed the flames in an instant. Salamander doesn't understand why his fire doesn't work, so it tried to use the fire attack again, but it was ineffective. It started screaming in anger and frustration that Roland was still alive. Meanwhile, Roland calmly explains that he just needs to move fast enough to deal with the fire. When the lizard begins to attack Roland, he says that it will pay for what it did to the village. Roland quickly cut off the salamander's arm, stuffed it into its mouth, and punched it to the ground. He apologized for his rough fighting style and started dragging the bloody monster's body away. Meanwhile, a stranger watches from afar, sweat when he saw Roland, and wondered who he really was. The stranger couldn't believe that Roland could extinguish the salamander's fire with just one hand and kill it in the blink of an eye. This person tried to speculate about Roland's identity, thinking that he might be from the hostile faction. But he was also confused, not understanding why Roland didn't face the Red Wolf directly before. Suddenly, Roland turned to look towards the stranger, causing him to panic and quickly hide. Thinking he had been discovered, Roland continued to drag the salamander's body away. This made the man standing in the distance calm down a bit as he thought of an idea and decided to act later. In the village, smoke was still rising, but most of the fire had been extinguished thanks to the help of villagers and 4 people in Roland's group. Roland brings the salamander's body back to the village, surprising the village chief and asking if Roland was the one who killed the monster. Roland introduced himself and explained that he was part of the group that had come here on a mission. The village chief also introduced himself and thanked Roland and everyone for their help. The village chief is about to mention another monster, Red Wolf, but everyone in the group said they killed it on the way to the village. Roland told the village chief that everyone could rest assured, and the villagers want them to stay overnight to rest and prepare a thank you party for what they did. As Roland walked around the village, he looked over the corpses, triggered by the Crimson Wolf, and the village chief explained that they lived in extreme fear as monsters were always lurking around the village. Roland explains that the Red Wolf is a monster, can be considered creatures with high intelligence. The village chief recalls other monsters appearing in the village, such as orcs, causing many people to leave the village to avoid danger. He sighed in frustration, wondering why things have to be like that when they just want to have a normal life. This causes Roland to reflect on the pain he himself went through to achieve the normal life he was trying to protect. With a determined expression, Roland told the village chief not to worry and reassured that no more monsters would attack the village. At night, people gather around the fire, this time from the monsters they destroyed, and everyone ate, drank, laughed, and had fun together. Meanwhile, Roland couldn't help but be moved by this scene. He remembered the people he had met so far, like Malia and her family. However, Roland knew he still had things to do during the night. Meanwhile, Nil and the others were drinking, chat about the day's achievements, and kept praising Roland for helping them get there. However, when they returned to look for Roland, he has disappeared, leaving the group confused. Deep in the forest, Roland returned to the place. He fought the salamander. He called out to the person he had discovered before. The man walked out with a half smile, laughed, and commented on Roland's ordinary appearance, but his extraordinary strength and skill in fighting salamander and Red Wolf as if it were nothing. This person claims to be an A-rank hunter and monster tamer, looking for strong comrades. He explains that he used monsters to attack the villages, to attract hunters, then choose the strongest ones as teammates. However, Roland was clearly unhappy when he heard this person's complacent plan. Roland coldly told the man that he had taken the lives of innocent people they had tried to protect all day. However, the stranger just laughed and said that the villagers died because they were too weak. He started laughing loudly at Roland's words, then called him annoying and declared that he didn't need Roland anymore. He pulled out a dagger, confident that he could still fight without his monster. Roland, with cold eyes, said that the man said too much for a dead man. In just a few seconds, blood flowed from the stranger's mouth. He fell to the ground, seemingly dead. Roland quickly left, without realizing the wolf-like creatures were quietly approaching the corpse. The next morning, everyone said goodbye to the group of 4 and thanked them for their help. As Roland thought about Layla's situation, Nil suddenly admitted that he had followed Roland the previous day, but insisted that he did not see or hear anything. Nil hesitantly asked if Roland would accept him as a disciple. Roland immediately rejected Nil's offer, making Nil extremely surprised. Nil tries to explain his reasons and desires, but Roland only responds that all he can teach are the basics, even though Nil doesn't mind. In the end, Roland did not refuse outright, but did not agree either, only telling Nil to quickly prepare to continue. When they returned to the guild, Melia was excited to see Roland, but she was also shocked to hear about what the group had gone through. She marked the task as complete and distributed salaries to everyone, along with giving Roland a bonus and a day off. Roland was surprised by what he received, because he just thought that this mission was just a simple job, making everyone around him cry out in surprise. Melia also said that the branch manager wanted to meet Roland. When Roland came to see Iris, he told her about the monster tamer he met and how he disappeared. But Iris says there's nothing they can do about it. She then changed the subject and said that, to thank Roland for his contributions, she would invite him to dinner at a fancy restaurant. However, Roland refuses, saying that he has important things to do, like taking care of a cute cat, and quickly left, making Iris feel disappointed when she seemed to have lost to a cat. Roland arrives home and is greeted by Layla, who seems sad because she apparently had a bad day after being chased by Melia and forced to eat cat food. Roland tries to cheer her up by buying steak and wine as she requested, but that still doesn't seem enough. Layla was curious to know more about what happened in the village that she didn't know about. Roland responded without hesitation and admitted that it was the first time he killed someone of his own free will. He said he would try his best to avoid that in the future, causing Layla to realize that Roland's mind has begun to change. Since he started living a normal life, she placed her hand on his cheek and said that only a king monster could understand a king monster. And it seemed like she was the only one who could understand him. Roland hugs her and admits that he feels strange and warm every time he is with her. This confused Layla, and she confessed that she felt the same way. While hiding her face in his chest, embarrassed, Roland noticed Layla's ears were red and asked if she was okay, but she just got angry and told him to figure it out for himself. On the way home, Roland, carrying a bag of groceries, passed by an alley. At first he didn't pay attention, but then felt something strange, causing him to turn around and poke his head in to look. He walked in with a confused look on his face and met a small girl covered in mud, bruises, and wearing torn clothes. The girl bowed her head, her face full of sadness. Roland stood still for a moment, before kneeling down to greet the girl. The girl weakly raised her head to look at him, revealing the slave mark on her neck. Realizing the girl's situation, Roland searched in his pocket and took out a potato and gave it to the girl. The girl slowly reached out her hand and took a small bite. After eating, she leaned against the wall again, and Roland knew that she would not survive without care. He decided to carry the girl home. When he got home, Layla was wearing an apron and happily greeted him, boasting that the sauce she made today was the best ever. After looking at the bag Roland brought home to check if he forgot to buy bread, she suddenly noticed the little girl on Roland's back and asked what happened. Roland entered the house and explained that he would take care of her for a while. Layla wondered why he would do that when no one asked, but Roland just replied that it was okay because they still had a spare room. Layla shrugged and said he could do whatever he wanted, then told him that the bath was ready, but she couldn't help him because she was busy preparing dinner. After bathing, she fell asleep, probably from relaxation. Roland asked Layla if there was a way to remove the slave mark, and she replied that there was. When she noticed Roland looking at her intently, Layla tries to tease him about how kind he is despite being an assassin in the past. Returning to the main topic, Layla explains that the slave mark is a form of contract that can only be erased by its creator. However, Roland already knew this and said that it was only human understanding. Layla looked closely at the girl and wondered why someone would make her a slave, since she didn't look like someone who would be worth a lot when sold. Roland agrees when Layla explains that humans often use different types of slave contracts. This girl was assigned a popular contract called the Monster Contract, a contract that exchanges extraordinary magical power with the soul of the signer. However, Layla noticed something strange in the contract, with terms such as obedience and inability to lie. She says that she can teach Roland magic to break the contract, but warns that if he doesn't learn it properly, the magic won't be effective. There's also the possibility that liberation will fail. Roland is determined to learn. Layla became a bit arrogant, saying that he should be thankful that a monster king like her would teach him herself, but Roland quickly corrected himself and told her to begin. After studying for a while, Roland felt he had a chance to break the seal and get closer to her. Just as Layla suddenly remembered something and was about to explain, Roland calmly chanted the spell and successfully removed the slave mark on her neck on the first try. In just a few seconds, the mark disappeared. Layla stood still, mouth agape in surprise as Roland succeeded in casting a level 5 spell on the first try without creating a magic circle, making his magic power equal to hers. Roland wonders about the level 5 magic Layla mentioned, prompting her to explain that there is a ranking system for ghosts, and the higher the level, the stronger the magic. Layla is the only one at level 1, and she said that Roland had a talent for magic. Roland didn't feel like he was doing anything special, simply following Layla's teaching, but Layla insisted that he should not be modest, because your magic is equal to that of ghosts. Then, during dinner, the little girl finally woke up, and was startled to see Roland in the room. He asked her if she slept well, then introduced himself and gave her a bowl of soup that Layla had cooked. He said he couldn't guarantee the taste, but at least it was better than nothing. Layla walked in with a frustrated look on her face, feeling insulted by Roland's words. The little girl started eating soup, but still said nothing. Roland thought for a moment before approaching Layla. She was confused, thinking he was going to kiss her in front of her, making her blush even though she didn't resist. However, that was just a misunderstanding, because Roland actually just put his hand on her neck and turned her into a cat. Layla shouted in confusion and anger until she started speaking, her eyes lighting up with excitement. Roland picked up the cat and told her to take care of it, while Layla continued to complain about the situation, screaming for Roland to change her back to her original form and for him to release her. The little girl asked if taking care of the cat was an order from her master, but Roland said that he was not her master and did not force her to do it. He went on to say that he was going to work, and if she needed anything, she could ask the cat. Roland went to the guild and looked through the list of members. Roland realizes that the race, gender, and age of the adventurers are not recorded. Malia noticed and asked what he was doing, until Roland explains that he just wanted to check something. Suddenly, a cat meowing came from outside the building, interrupting the conversation. Roland opened the window and asked the girl what she was doing there. In the end, Roland allowed her to enter the guild, while everyone looked on and commented on how trustworthy Roland was in taking care of her. He apologized for her appearance, but Malia said it was okay, and they can ask permission from the branch head. However, Morley intervenes and says that won't happen because the guild is not an orphanage. Roland admitted that that made sense. Morley started complaining about how he hated children, because they are noisy and annoying. Iris then walked in, after all the commotion and hearing about this situation, and immediately gave Roland permission to let her stay, as long as she didn't cause trouble. Morley, confused and upset, asked Iris if it's okay to give Roland so much freedom. He even tried to complain that Roland was always the first to leave, and wasn't really serious about work. But Iris explains that that only happens because Roland always finishes his work, allowing him to leave early. Iris just told Roland to keep her in the reception room and told her to behave, promised to visit her often. The girl smiled brightly as Roland patted her head. After the work is completed, Roland took the girl to his and Layla's house. They named her Mylee, an ancient word in the monster language, meaning blue sky, because they needed a name to call her, since she couldn't remember her real name. Little Mylee was very happy with her new name and jumped up and down happily. Layla then asked Roland what his plans were for her, and he replied that he would turn her into an adventurer. He also wants to find someone who can teach her how to live like a normal person. Layla almost made a suggestion when Roland thought to himself that he could ask Malia for help, causing Layla to leave angry. Roland then told Mylee about the daily training sessions they would begin early in the morning. The first training session is simply jogging, but Mei Li seemed to have difficulty at first. She gets tired quickly, but over time, Mei Li will learn to increase her endurance and get used to training. Roland asked the girl, does she remember anything about her time as a slave? But Mei Li still can't remember anything about her past. At that time, Layla called them in for dinner, but she was not happy, looked at Roland with angry eyes, and declared that she was not their mate. Roland reassures Layla that he never thought of her as his maid. Layla finally admits that she just wanted Roland to pay more attention to her, because he only seemed to be paying attention to Mei Li recently. Roland didn't understand what she meant, and asked if she wanted him to train her, causing Layla to complain in a warm tone. At night, everyone seems to be asleep, except Roland. He quickly noticed the presence of a stranger outside the door. Roland went out to handle the situation, but he was confused as to who the assassin's target was. Because Layla's identity is unlikely to be discovered, so he speculated that the target could only be Mei Li. In the following days, Roland continued to train Mei Li, little girl holding a tree branch, and tried to hit Roland, but he easily dodged all the attacks. Even though there were no hits, Roland still praised Mei Li, saying that she didn't do too bad, and that what she needed now was more practical experience. Mei Li asked Roland if the moves had names. Roland replied that it wasn't necessary, but she could name them if she wanted. Layla calls them in for lunch, giving Mei Li a chance to attack as she screams the name of a move she created. However, the little girl's loud scream, making it easy for Roland to block the attack, causing Mei Li to huff and throw away the branch in frustration. The little girl ran to Layla for comfort, but Layla agreed with Roland, saying this was no game and I won't lose to a child. This made Mei Li even angrier. A few days have passed since the incident with the assassin, but no further action has occurred. Although Roland didn't think it would end so easily. While eating, Layla asked Roland why he taught her assassination techniques instead of swordsmanship or martial arts. If you want her to become an adventurer, Roland confesses that he doesn't want Mei Li to have naive thoughts like the other adventurers, thinking that it's okay to fail because there's always a next time. Layla praised Mei Li for having improved so much since she first saw her training, and Mei Li happily said that it was all thanks to Roland's help and advice. Layla thought for a moment and then asked if it was time for Mei Li to become a talented adventurer. Roland then asked Mei Li if she wanted to become an adventurer, and the girl answered without hesitation. They arrived at the guild, and Melia saw them coming, confused that Roland had the day off but showed up. He explained that he had come to register Mei Li as an adventurer, even though she was still very young. Melia went to get the form for Mei Li to fill out, and explains that the test will include a measurement of magical power and a practical test. The practical part will be done first, but will unfortunately be supervised by Morley. This was disappointing for many reasons, not because Mei Li would lose, but because she had to face Morley. The group goes to the training area, and Morley confidently says that his job is to teach kids to give up unrealistic dreams. But everyone was preparing to laugh at him when the match started. Roland gave Mei Li a sheathed dagger, telling her to do what they practiced. Mei Li and Morley stood facing each other, ready for battle. Melia started the test, and Morley immediately rushed forward, swinging a powerful blow with a wooden stick, declaring victory to the one who struck first. But Mei Li easily dodged it, then hit Morley from behind. The girl continued to do so many times, causing Morley to finally beg her to stop. This means Mei Li passed the practical test, although she still needs to develop her magic due to her young age. In the end, Mei Li passed the adventurer exam, and the three decided to throw a party to celebrate. Layla takes care of Mei Li at home, but this action seems to trigger a memory in Mei Li's head. A light flashes in her mind, but she decided to put it aside until another time. Mei Li ran into the guild, begging Roland to allow her to accept a quest, but he had to explain to her again that there were no combat quests for F rank. She will have to do easier tasks than before. Suddenly, the knights rushed in and tried to capture Mei Li, but Roland and Layla were determined not to give her to them, causing the knights to decide to use violence to solve the problem. Roland sighed and walked out, and punched a knight in the face, causing him to faint on the spot, causing everyone in the building to look at him with judgmental eyes. At that time, the head of the knights, Lord Baladel, entered and asked for her, calling her by her nickname. Layla refuses, and Baladel, quickly noticing her beauty, tried to invite her to go with him, but Layla slapped him hard. Layla insists that only Roland can touch her. Baladel did not recognize Roland, until he took off his glasses and asked about his brother's condition. At the same time, he warned that if Baladel turned away now, Roland will forgive him and not reveal the dirty tricks he used to get to the throne. Baladel immediately cooperated, apologized for his actions and what the knights did. Although Roland is satisfied with his cooperation, but he still wanted Baladel to tell him everything he knew about the girl after discovering what he can do. Finally, Baladel was allowed to leave. Because Roland couldn't ask too much from the nobles, this is not a normal action. He said goodbye to Baladel. In the evening, when Roland returned to the guild, all eyes were on him. Everyone was curious as to who he was that made the nobles kneel before him. Roland tells Meili that everything will be okay. Made her remember something, but quickly pushed it aside, then said that she wanted to accept the quest that Roland had chosen. At night, Meili slept soundly, and Roland quickly tells Layla that Meili is actually a princess from the fallen kingdom of Badenhark, and it seemed like she had lost all her memories. Layla did not look happy when she heard this. Roland opens his arms to hug her, when Layla asks if anyone is waiting for Meili. Roland doesn't know, and says he'll probably have to go to King Randolph to ask about it later. Meanwhile, Meili lay on the bed, wondering when her memories will return. She thought about her interactions with Roland, Layla, and other things she had experienced after being enslaved. She remembers a big mansion where she had kind parents and 3 siblings. However, something happened and all of that was taken away from Meili. After that, everything became blurry, and she didn't understand anything until she met Roland in the alley. Back to the present, Meili got up from bed and went into Roland and Layla's room, asked if she could sleep there tonight. Meili climbed into bed and hugged Roland, the black-haired man, until Layla poked her head out from under the covers with a frustrated look on her face because Meili's presence had ruined her plans with Roland. She knew she wouldn't have a chance before he had to leave for a while. Meili noticed Layla was undressed and asked if she was cold. Layla replied that it was okay because she was under the blanket and told Meili to lie between them to create space for Roland to sleep. She asked where Roland was going, and he said he was going on a business trip for 2 days, while Meili would stay with Layla. Hearing that, Meili hugged Roland with a sad expression. Layla also joined in and hugged both of them, and they fell asleep in a warm embrace. The next day, Meili told Layla that she was going to the guild and would come back after completing her work, while Layla continued working around the house, wondering what Roland is doing. In fact, Roland was in King Randolph's bedroom at that time, tried to wake the old man up with a slap. An incident happened that made the king both confused and scared. Roland must reassure the king that he is not here to kill him. Roland then explains that he has a favor to ask, which would be difficult without Randolph's help. The matter concerns the princess of the Badenhark kingdom. Roland wanted to know if there were any survivors from that kingdom. King Randolph replied that Meili's mother was still alive. However, there is no official information about her family. With this information, Roland asked Randolph to inform Meili's mother about the situation. After that, he quickly left to return home. Roland arrived home before Meili returned from the guild. Layla told him that everyone in the guild was talking about Meili, that she was a promising new recruit. The conversation is interrupted when Roland announces that Meili's mother is still alive and will come pick her up in 2 days. This made Layla turn away with a sad smile. Roland notices the change in Layla and silently observes her, as Layla tries to appear optimistic, saying that she cannot be sad because Meili is about to be reunited with her family. Because there are only 2 days left, they decided to make those 2 days the best days Meili had ever experienced. They want to create more memories with her before the day of separation comes. Layla again helped Meili prepare her outfit. When the carriage arrived, they went out together, holding hands to meet Meili's mother, or more accurately, Alias's mother. All memories seemed to rush back as mother and daughter hugged each other tightly in tears. Meili's mother thanks Roland and Layla for taking care of her daughter. She promised to never forget this kindness. She said her daughter could take time to say goodbye. Meili walked up to Roland and Layla, saying she was happy to meet them and learn a lot from them. Layla tells Meili that this is not the final goodbye. She can visit them whenever she wants. Meili agreed and said she would write to them. However, she suddenly said that she would become Roland's wife in the future, to which Roland only replied that he understood, making Layla feel confused and jealous. Meili smiled one last time, tears in her eyes, and said she was happy to see them. After that, she left with her mother. Roland and Layla both felt regretful, but also warm-hearted after saying goodbye. Roland once again visits King Randolph and wakes him up with a slap. The king woke up startled with a scream. His eyes widened as he looked at Roland, surprised and confused, not understanding why Roland still came and afraid that this time he would really kill him. Roland quickly explains that he came to thank Randolph for last time and return the favor. The king tried to deny it, saying that it was not necessary, because Roland had helped a lot in the past when he was an assassin. However, Roland is determined that he must repay the favor, because this matter has nothing to do with the past, but a debt he must repay like a normal person. Randolph thought for a while, then finally thought of something Roland could do to repay the favor. That involved his daughter, the first princess, and the hero Almeria. Roland wondered if there was something wrong with the princess, and if there really was, after defeating and conquering the monster king, Almeria became sad. Her personal servant asked and discovered that Almeria was sad because her lover suddenly disappeared, even though they promised to be together after defeating the monster king. Roland nodded, as if he understood the situation. He asked if we just need to find that person, but Randolph, frustrated by Roland's naivety, explains that Almeria was talking about Roland himself and asked him to cheer her up. Roland returned to the city, wondering what he should do next. Even though Randolph explained, Roland knew that he had never promised anything to Almeria. Furthermore, falling in love with a royal family is not something an ordinary person like him can do. But he still has to pay this debt. Once home, Roland explains the whole situation to Layla. She clearly remembered who Almeria was. Layla immediately calls Roland troublesome because of the trouble he caused himself. However, Roland doesn't remember ever making any promises to Almeria. It seemed that Roland had suddenly disappeared, leaving Almeria sad the whole time. Layla seems to have an idea how to handle this situation and suggests that Roland can make Almeria believe that he is dead, because if the sadness is due to loss, time will help her heal the wound, instead of forever despairing about his disappearance. Roland's eyes widened because he thought this idea was great, and he asked Layla if she had any plans. Layla said that there was a level 7 illusion magic called Reality Nightmare, which made Roland very interested, and he immediately stood up from his chair. Layla asked if he wanted to learn it, and Roland did not hesitate to confirm. Layla begins to teach him how to use this magic. As usual, Roland learned very quickly, which made Layla feel a bit sad because she felt her pride as the Demon King was hurt. While Layla was distracted, Roland raised his hand. He tested the real nightmare spell in front of her, making Layla believe that she was a dog and that Roland was her owner. Immediately, Layla seemed to turn into a completely different person, rushing towards Roland with a happy bark, trying to jump on him, but Roland quickly dodged aside, making Layla disappointed, and groaning because she couldn't achieve her goal. Roland realizes that the real nightmare magic is not only an illusion, but also combined with hypnosis. However, his thoughts were interrupted when Layla started kissing and licking his face like a dog, while barking. This made Roland think it was time to free her from this state. He clapped his hands simply. Layla regained consciousness, and realized what she had just done, became confused, and began complaining to Roland about what he had done. Roland turned around to leave the house because he didn't have time for random stories, making Layla feel offended, thinking that he didn't want to hear her words, but Roland only kissed her to silence her. He said he would reward her if she behaved well while he was away. Layla reminded him not to stay too long when leaving the house. Another normal day comes to Roland's normal job, and many adventurers come to the guild, requesting quests, creating a large workload for the staff. Layla, in cat form, was playing with papers on the table when Milia approached Roland, giving him some documents to process. Roland took it without hesitation, but Milia leaned closer, staring at Roland. She asked if it's because Meili has gone home that Roland seems absent lately, making both Roland and Layla surprised to hear this question. Roland thought for a moment, but didn't know how to explain it. He just said that there was a strange feeling like a hole in his heart. Melia smiled and said that it was called loneliness. Then he laughed. He added that it was nice to see Roland caring for the people he loved. She told him to continue processing the documents and then started walking. However, suddenly someone burst into the main door of the guild, leaving Milia confused as to who had come. The door was pushed open, and a person walked in with confidence. Roland turned his head, eyes widening when he saw a familiar person. That person stood in the middle of the gathering with a determined and satisfied look on his face. Almeria, in her familiar armor, apologized for causing a ruckus. Everyone in the building was either surprised and excited to see the princess and the hero appear, or didn't know who she was, and just thought she was another adventurer. Almaria approached the counter and told Milia that she came to the guild because she heard there was an employee named Roland. Milia didn't know what to say, while Roland raised the paper to cover his face to avoid Almaria's gaze. Unfortunately, Almaria recognized Roland immediately, even though he tried to pretend that she was the wrong person. However, she easily saw through his simple disguise with just a pair of glasses. Roland was silent for a moment, still holding the paper over his mouth, then asked Almaria what business he had here. She replied that she wanted to become an adventurer. Roland immediately replied that they were no longer accepting applications. Almaria was confused and disappointed because she thought that anyone could become an adventurer. She turned to Milia for help, only making her even more confused and worried. Roland wondered why Almaria came to the guild and thought that perhaps the magic had failed. When Roland arrived at the palace, Almaria was crying in her room, her face buried deep into the pillow and blanket, sobbing. She heard a noise, turned around and asked someone, until he saw Roland walking through the bedroom window curtains. The tears stopped falling. She looked at him with a confused and shocked expression when she realized who the person in front of her was. Roland approached using nightmare reality magic on her. He said that he died after the battle with the Monster King, and on the way back died from his injuries. Roland took a step back, observing how the magic would work. He saw Almaria start to cry again, crying and confused. She spoke to him or to herself, admitting that she loved him and repeating that he had promised to be with her, promised to kiss her after the battle was over, repeatedly repeating that he had promised to miss. Roland seemed to remember that he had promised something. He decided to keep his promise. He gently kissed Almaria, giving her a short, sweet kiss. Then he quickly left, silently praying for her safety. However, it seems like this won't be the last time he sees her. Roland wondered if someone had broken the magic and felt confused by the situation. Meanwhile, Almaria begged Milia to quickly give her the application form to become an adventurer, but Roland refused. Because she was a princess and already a hero, he said that now was not the time to play. Almaria made a sulky face, saying it was okay, but wondered why Roland's attitude had changed after what he did to her. The other members of the guild became confused and began whispering to each other, curious about the relationship between Roland and Almaria, and gradually wondering who Roland really was. Almaria's expression changed quickly, smiling, wondering if Roland was embarrassed. However, Roland insisted that he did not understand what she was saying, then asked if she had told her father about joining the guild. This question made Almaria angry, because she did not want to drag her father into this matter. Everyone in the group began to speculate whether the two were in love. Almaria mumbled, saying that she should be allowed to become an adventurer. She also wondered why Roland wore glasses, but then blushed, and said the glasses looked good on him. She orders Roland to ask her superiors to allow her to become an adventurer, but he refuses. Another employee approached and advised Roland to do as she said. Otherwise they may get into trouble. Although unhappy, Roland agreed and took Almaria to meet branch manager Iris. Almaria confidently said that she wanted to become an adventurer and asked if it was possible. Iris replied that it was no problem, but before she could say anything more, Almaria interrupted, asked Iris's name and said she would remember her name, causing Roland to intervene, looking coldly at Almaria so that she wouldn't be too arrogant towards her superiors. Almaria apologized and appeared obedient as she introduced herself to Iris, then happily informed Roland that his boss had agreed, making him sigh and say that Almaria would have to test his abilities, and he would be the judge. This means she will have to fight him. Almaria objected, saying that it was impossible and that she could not win against Roland. However, she still didn't want to find another guild to join. Roland wondered why she was so determined to join this guild, till Almaria confesses that it was all just an excuse to see him. Finally, they went out to prepare for the match. Almaria and Roland faced each other. She pulled out her sword and declared that she would fight seriously for him to acknowledge her. Roland encouraged her to do her best and wondered if she could stand before him. He started looking at her with cold eyes, creating a heavy pressure that Almaria immediately felt. She suddenly jumped back, raising her sword in a defensive stance. Layla observes and comments that Almaria has a pretty good sense of danger, but unfortunately, Roland's murderous intent alone is enough to paralyze her. Almaria sweat-dropped and slowly backed away as Roland approached. He looked at her more and more intently, causing her to finally collapse to the ground in fear. End of the match. Almaria gasped, unable to believe that she had been defeated by Roland's murderous intent. Disappointed because I could only endure it for 5 seconds. However, Roland complimented Almeria and said that he thought she had truly gotten stronger. He reminded her that in the past, whenever she was suppressed by his killing intent, she would faint and even wet the bed out of fear, causing her to panic and try to say it was just sweat. However, Roland said that he had won, and she was still not capable, making Almeria angry. Whine and run away, said she would come back. Roland just sighed and told her to do whatever she wanted. This seemed to make her smile as she rode away. The crowd began to stir, and everyone went about their day. Roland apologizes for causing trouble. Malia asked about his relationship with the princess, and he honestly answered that they had been together on their journey to defeat the Demon King. Malia just took it as a joke and laughed loudly, before Roland decided to add that he was just Almeria's tutor, a reason that seems reasonable to everyone. Malia, along with the reason why you wear glasses, confidently walked away, while all the other employees believed Roland's words, made him realize that he had just acquired a strange nickname. One day, Roland worked at the guild again, and an employee approached him and said he could take the job at the front desk because he is very good at resolving conflicts between people. Roland asked the next person to come up to the counter. A shy boy approached, asking for a quest. At the same time, he also wanted to confirm Roland's identity. The boy wanted to be sure Fernil and many other adventurers said good things about Roland, that any mission Roland proposed would go well. However, Roland said that he should not believe everything he hears. The boy then asked Roland to suggest a mission that suited his abilities. Roland went to get a simple E-rank quest for him to explore. The boy looked at the task and believed he could handle it, but still can't help but worry. Because you don't want to get hurt. Roland reassured him that it was normal to be so worried. Just then, a girl walked up to the counter and asked for a difficult task. Roland found a quest that 2 F-rank adventurers had signed up for, and there is room for one more person to meet the mission requirements. He brought the mission to the girl, and she accepted without hesitation. After that, Roland went to process the information and gather the remaining group members. In the afternoon, the group has gathered with the adventurers, Atro, the spear user, sword user, Uno, and the girl from before was named Everly. They looked at each other with worried expressions and told Roland that they all didn't believe they were strong enough to complete the mission. Hearing that, Roland told them to go out, then let Malia handle business at the counter for a while. Once the group goes outside, Roland explains that he will train them a bit, because the task they signed up for was too difficult for them. The group felt uncomfortable and protested, saying that if they cooperated, they could overcome it. However, Roland only responded by summoning small shadows, then let them attack the 2 men, and stole the girl's underwear. Roland laughed loudly and called them weak, stating that they were weaker than the shadows he summoned, which were said to be very weak. The girl complained that her dress was lifted up, and Roland simply replied that she should be thankful that that was it, because women often have worse things to do when dealing with bad guys. He said they need to learn to recognize their own abilities, and make them admit that they are weaker than insects, to maintain humility and self-awareness. This will help them transform that awareness into strength. From now on, they will begin training by fighting the shadows that Roland summoned. Each member of the group gradually learns moves suitable to their abilities. At the same time, practice fighting and become stronger. Finally, they were ready for the mission they signed up for. When the quest requester asked the party if they could handle it, they confidently replied that they would do their best at the Adventurers Guild. When Roland returned to his desk, he saw a boy begging the staff to give him another chance, because he really wanted to become an adventurer. However, the staff told him that the Adventurer Guild was closed and he had to leave. He apologized and agreed. Malia then explained to Roland that the boy had asked about this the day before, but according to regulations, you have to wait 6 months before you can re-register. She also added that the boy's skill was very strange. It seemed like he didn't know how to use it. She wanted to ask if Roland was free during the day, but he refused, saying he still had work to do. That includes going out to see the boy again. The boy explains that he needs to become an adventurer to help his mother, but he is not strong enough, even though it was his dream. After seeing Almeria fight, Roland asked the boy to show off his skills. The boy demonstrated a skill called Pierce, using his sword to extend his attack range. Roland thought for a moment, then suggested the boy use the skill with a shovel. When the boy did that, he felt ashamed, because he thought his skills were only useful for digging. However, Roland explains that this skill is very important and useful because it will help create safe areas. And from there, the boy felt more confident again. Roland also told him that he could retake the test at another adventurer guild. Initially, Roland intended to teach him how to use a spear, but when he saw the boy happily running away, he knew that was enough. At that moment, another adventurer walked in, rudely sat on the table and asked for a good quest. Roland suggested that he could collect herbs or transport luggage, but the man got angry and started scolding Roland. At this moment, Nil walked in and slapped the man hard, remind him not to bother Roland or sit on the counter. Nil apologizes to Roland for the man's actions, until the man realized that Roland was the person Nil often mentioned. He immediately changed his attitude, started worshipping Roland. But that only made Nil angrier, and tried to admonish the man. The man bowed his head again. Nil asked Roland for information about the mission, and Roland sighed at the trouble of the situation. He continued to help the adventurers at the counter, causing Malia to praise him, but Morley interrupted and said it was no big deal. Malia tries to explain that this is actually a big thing, since Roland doesn't work long but is an excellent employee. Morley tries to claim to be more famous, but Malia knows that Morley is only famous because of the people he is close to, causing both of them to look at each other with discomfort and tell each other to focus on work. Another employee advised Roland to rest, and he went out until he came across a shadow. The darkness told him that things had gone well with the group he coached. Roland felt reassured by that result. Iris comes and wants to hear about what happened to Almeria and Baladel, and Roland told the truth, leaving Iris disappointed because she couldn't reprimand him. She calls Roland an ally of justice before reminding him one more time before he left that there was a group of adventurers who had recently become stronger. Roland simply replied that he was just giving advice to prevent possible disasters. Iris thought for a moment, and then commented that he was helping. Nobody's become excellent adventurers. Iris tried to invite Roland to dinner again, but he quickly refused on the grounds that he had to take care of his cat. Iris insisted that the meeting was about business, but Roland replied that work could be discussed at work. Before he left, she shouted that she had a proposal to invite him to become the official examiner for the exploration exam, a proposal that Roland was very interested in. On the way home, in his work clothes, Roland ran into Malia. She called his name and ran over, attracting his attention. Malia panted, trying to keep up because Roland was walking quite fast, but he was interested in why she was here, asking what she needed from him. Malia raised her head, smiled brightly, and raised a bag, taking out a carefully wrapped bottle of wine. She said she wanted to congratulate him on his promotion to official examiner. Roland was about to refuse, saying he was busy, but Malia quickly said that when something happy happens, you should celebrate because it's normal. Surprised by these words, Roland changed his attitude and immediately agreed to Malia's invitation, making her jump with joy. However, Malia was a bit confused when she realized that Roland seemed to agree to do anything if she said it was normal. They walked around the city, chatting along the way. Malia said that all the guild staff were surprised to hear about his promotion, as Roland had only been working at the guild for 2 months, but she was happy to see him become the guild's first full-time judge, especially since everyone agreed with the decision. Well, most people are like that. Roland remembered someone who definitely disagreed, but Malia told him not to bother with Morley, because it would be strange if anyone objected after reading the guild director's report about him. Malia was also touched by Roland's concern for the boy earlier, and she noticed a change in the hunter's attitudes towards quests recently. Nil, who had been F rank for a long time, quickly rose to C rank. Roland tried to claim that the hunters changed through their own efforts, and he had nothing to do with it. But Malia said that Iris had a different opinion, and also said that Roland's sincerity touched everyone's heart. This leaves Roland stunned, while Malia tries to convince him that there is something special about him. He asked her why she was so happy, as if she was the one being praised. Malia laughed and said that it was true, because she was his superior, and the fact that Roland was praised meant that she also received indirect praise. They kept going. Roland asked Malia about the celebration party. Malia explained that the branch manager will also be in attendance, and they plan to hold the party at Roland's house. Roland thinks it's normal to hold a party at the house of the person being congratulated. When they approached the house, they saw Iris standing outside the door, wearing a gorgeous dress, holding a carefully wrapped bottle of wine, and she was very excited. Upon recognizing Roland and Malia, Iris greeted them and gave the bottle of wine to Roland, but Malia was worried about Iris's unusually formal outfit. Iris insisted that it was normal for her, and Roland immediately believed it, even though Malia said she knew Iris was trying hard. Due to the noise outside, Layla comes out and greets Roland, saying it's rare to see him come home with guests. Malia greeted Layla, and Iris introduced herself as the guild branch director, but Layla already knew that, leaving Iris confused. Layla turned to Roland and asked casually if the two girls were here to have fun with him, making Iris and Malia startled, surprised, and confused. Roland quickly denied and put the wine bottle down on the table. Only when Layla saw the bottles of wine did she realize that they were having a party. She smiled confidently before Malia asked to borrow the stove and apron, surprising Layla and teasing Malia about her courage in wanting to enter her territory. Malia feels frustrated and asked Layla to show her what she can and cannot use. The two then went into the kitchen, while Iris observed and commented that the two seemed to get along very well. Meanwhile, Roland and Iris prepare the table and wait for the food. Malia opened the lid of the pot with a surprised expression, then tried a piece and asked the demon girl about the food in the pot. Malia complained uncomfortably that the food tasted better than she expected, but still trying to say that something is wrong and needs to be improved. This caused the two girls to start arguing. Malia tried to push Layla away and told her to go out for a while. Layla was annoyed but glanced at Roland and Iris, then walked over and hugged Roland's hand, introducing herself to the branch manager. They decided to start the party early because it would take Malia a while to prepare the food. The three of them sat down at the table together. Iris curiously asked Layla about her relationship with Roland. Layla answered comfortably that she was like Roland's wife, surprised Iris. Layla told Iris that there was no need to worry, because she understood that women often look for strong men, and as long as Roland always returned to her, she would be satisfied. Roland asked if Layla drank too much, and she smiled shyly. Iris thought to herself, and finally understood the reason. Why did Roland refuse her dinner invitation? Malia finally finished her meal and asked what Layla had been bragging about while she was away, but Layla just told Malia to bow to her. Malia sighed and turned to Roland, trying to convince him that her dish was better, and that Roland should choose her instead of Layla. After being politely refused, Malia gets upset and starts drinking the wine she brought, while Layla tells her that today is not Milia's day. Everyone celebrates together and enjoys a delicious meal and drank wine, causing both Malia and Layla to become full and fall asleep in bed, leaving only Roland and Iris awake. Iris asked Roland if he could continue, but Roland didn't answer and just moved closer, placing his hand on her glass of wine. The two looked at each other in silence, before Iris leaned in to kiss Roland, but quickly withdrew it when she realized Roland did not object. She calls him a bad guy, and Roland doesn't deny it, because he has done many wrong things in the past. Iris asks if he is good at winning women's hearts, and Roland admits that if necessary, he can do it. Iris then moved closer, sitting on Roland. The next morning, after everyone had left, Roland got ready to go to work and noticed that Layla seemed sick. He prepared a meal and told her to eat when she felt hungry. Layla tried to speak, trying to explain the cause of her condition, but then ignored it and just asked for a kiss. Roland did not hesitate to agree, kissing her before leaving for work. Malia then realizes that Layla might be sick, which surprises her. She wondered if Roland should go to work in this state, making Roland feel confused. Malia asked him if he had taken Layla to the doctor yet. Roland says that he hasn't taken Layla to the doctor yet, causing Malia to advise him to go home early, because sick people are vulnerable and feel lonely. Malia also admitted that if no one took care of her when she was sick, she would complain all year long. She then went to inform the branch manager that she would cook dinner after work, while Roland would take Layla to the doctor and take care of her. Hearing Malia say that, Roland quickly left, walking through the city and thinking about what to do. He doubted that a human doctor would be able to treat a demon like Layla. As he approached the house, I saw the door open. This made him feel suspicious. He carefully entered the silent house and slowly walked into the bedroom. However, Layla is no longer in bed. Her clothes were still on the bed, but the dress she usually wore was gone. This means she changed clothes recently. Roland touched the bed and found it was still warm, indicating that Layla could not have gone too far. He knew that she hadn't gone shopping because he hadn't seen her on the way home. Upon looking closely, Roland noticed traces of magic left on the bed, causing him to wonder if the survivors of the Monster King's army had discovered that Layla was still alive, or if Layla had regained her strength. However, he thought the first possibility was more plausible, because if Layla had recovered her strength, he would have noticed immediately thanks to her powerful energy, and the necklace was still there. The magic trail leads south, and Roland watched it, taking off his glasses to get a better feel. The tracks lead through the city and into a dense forest, stopping at a certain area. Roland raised his head took a few seconds to determine the source, and quickly discovered it. He approached the location he sensed and asked the hidden person to come out. Not long after, a dark elf girl came out with a sarcastic smile, saying she wondered who had been following her, only to discover that it was a human. Roland was not surprised to see that she was a dark elf, only breathed a sigh of relief when it was confirmed that it was just a dark elf, which made the girl feel insulted. Roland asked the dark elf to return Layla and warns her that it's best not to hurt her. However, the girl did not want to talk right away, although she also wanted to thank Roland for hiding Layla from her enemies. Roland just calmly replied that it was nothing, making the dark elf angrier and try to attack him. He quickly dodged all of her attacks and warned her to be careful of her back. The dark elf laughed loudly, thinking it was just a human trick. But in reality, there was something really behind her. Roland summoned small shadows to attack her from behind, made her surprised and confused when she saw a human being who could use level 4 magic. He explains that Layla taught him how to do this and called her worse than human, making the dark elf even angrier. Roland continued to summon more darkness, surprised her when she said that she could only summon a maximum of 6 shadows, and wondered if those shadows had a consciousness of their own. Roland simply said that he had complete control over all of them. In anger, the dark elf stabbed his sword into the ground, causing the shadows to disintegrate in fear, but she couldn't see what was happening around her. Roland approached the dark elf and simply patted her forehead, causing her to fly into a tree. He then looked around and found Layla, but the dark elf began to regain consciousness. Not wanting to be bothered, Roland decided to use a little magic to stop her from causing trouble. After finishing processing, Roland walked towards Layla and dispelled the magic that had been placed on her, causing her to wake up slowly. Layla looked at Roland confused, asking why he was here. She explained that her subordinate had asked her for help and said it would be best for her to explain. Layla wonders where the girl named Rosie went, since she should have been the one to carry Layla when she was under the sleeping spell. Roland calls Rosie over, and Layla realizes that the dark elf is there under the true nightmare spell and is acting like a dog. Layla finds the situation funny, but Rosie is still her subordinate and wants Roland to cancel the spell. Roland agreed and did it. Rosie was surprised why she was acting like a dog, and Roland asked her if she was happy. This makes Rosie angry again and pulls out her weapon. However, Layla stopped her, saying that she would not let anyone touch her husband. The dark elf does not understand the word husband, so Layla explains that Roland should not be taken lightly. She also said that she couldn't resist Roland for more than 30 minutes, and after 10 minutes she had to surrender, which surprised Rosie because the time was getting shorter and shorter. Suddenly, Roland interrupted and said that the first time Layla couldn't stand it for 5 minutes, causing Layla to blush and gently hit him, telling him not to say that in front of her subordinates. Layla continued to explain to Rosie that she recognized Roland and promised to be devoted to him, but Rosie still feels unable to acknowledge Roland. Back to the main issue, Roland asked Rosie why she was trying to take Layla away, and when Layla nodded in agreement, Rosie started to explain. She said she found Layla's body, but immediately realized it was fake because there is no mole on Layla's butt. Layla laughed and denied having a mole, but both Rosie and Erlen confirmed that she did. Rosie went on to say that after many months had passed, some members of the monster army began to propose attacking humans again to avenge the king of the monster's defeat. Rosie wants to let everyone know that Layla is actually alive, in order to make the rebels lose their reason to fight, because Rosie believes that retreating is the wise decision. The current and future leader will lead the invasion is a man named Cornelio Vazri, a name that Layla seemed to recognize. Although humanity may think the war is over, for monsters, it is not over. Originally, monsters lived on a separate continent called Makai, but one day they invaded humanity using teleportation magic. The monsters continued to try to take over as much territory as possible until the 7 kings formed an alliance to fight against the main force, while a special group of heroes broke into the castle and defeated the monster king, Object. However, there are still many monsters lurking around the castle area. That's why part of the coalition forces are still protecting that area. Roland tells Layla that she likely won't be able to stop them, and she understands that, but still wants to believe that monsters will listen to her as the king of monsters. Layla admits that the war waged by monsters was a mistake, and she wants to atone for her mistakes as the last person in charge of the Monster King. Roland responds that he will do everything he can to help her. Layla feels confused, because she doesn't want the humans to know that Roland didn't actually kill her, but Roland insists he killed the king of the monsters. However, he didn't want someone to still try to kill Layla, especially since he had to face her first. The monster girl burst into tears and hugged Roland tightly, while Rosie was also touched by this scene. The three of them walked through the forest, towards the portal that Rosie had installed near a hut. Rosie explains that there could be over 2,000 people, including monsters, gathered here, which would be too much for the guards around the castle. They almost reached the hut, but when they arrived, they discovered that the portal had been destroyed. Suddenly, a voice rang out in the air, makes everyone turn to look. A small person sat on a nearby hillside, asking Rosie why she was here with a human. This person's name is Delacrez, and Layla stepped forward, calling out to that little person, said she wanted to meet Cornelia. Delacrez gritted his teeth and told Layla to shut up, and says that even if Layla is truly revived, it no longer matters. The little monster Delacrez uses magic to transform into a dragon, and began preparing to attack with his breath. Roland asks Rosie if she can withstand this attack, and Rosie replies that she can, if just once. Roland replied that that was enough, and asked her to take care of the useless girl, just Layla. This angered both women, even though it wasn't wrong in this situation. Rosie immediately used magic to create a shield to protect herself and Layla, while remaining complacent that Roland probably couldn't do anything against Delacrez. However, when I opened my eyes, Roland has disappeared. The dragon breathed its attack, and both women were lucky to survive. Rosie started to worry, wondering where Roland had gone, and will he run away? But immediately, Roland appeared in Delacrez's hand. The dragon was shocked and tried to breathe fire at him, but Roland summoned a small spark and rushed straight at the dragon. Delacrez ducked to avoid it, but not in time, allowing Roland to still have time to attack it continuously. The little monster was forced out of its dragon form and fell to the ground unconscious. Meanwhile, Rosie is very angry, seeing that Roland could defeat Delacrez without any difficulty. However, the three now need to find a new way to get to the isolated island. Layla came up with an idea and asked Roland if he could learn this magic. He replied that he could, as long as it wasn't as complicated as dark magic. After a short lesson, Roland easily used teleportation magic, causing Rosie to bow her head in frustration, wondering who this person was. She started crying bitterly about how long it took her to learn this magic. Layla tries to comfort her, saying that Roland is just a man whose talent surpasses that of monsters, which makes Rosie less sad. When it was time to depart, the three held hands, and Roland cast a spell, teleporting them to their destination. Roland received compliments from Layla. Finally, they arrived at the meeting place. Rosie tells Roland not to do anything reckless, but he asks if he should kill all the monsters, since there are only about 2,000 here. Rosie laughed and said he could try if he wanted. Layla told her to stop because Roland wasn't joking. This confuses Rosie. They prepare to move after a period of rest, and Layla tells Roland that she wants to talk to everyone before he tries to kill anyone, because she doesn't want anyone to die if possible. A moment later, the three of them prepared to advance. But Rosie quickly realized there were no guards at the tower, which they intend to pass through. As they approached, they heard roars and cheers, make Rosie understand that the day of action has come, something they never told her. Roland explains that the dragon is probably just there to watch her, since they never really trusted Rosie. However, she still wants to believe that they can do it, especially since they have a doctor to check on Layla. The three climbed up and saw the large number of troops assembled, but Layla still tried to stand up confidently and attract everyone's attention, trying to say that she is really alive. Rosie tries to support Layla, and the crowd started cheering. Layla apologizes and says they should stop taking revenge and return to Makai, which confused all the monsters because they didn't believe that Layla would really say such words. None of the monsters can sense magical power from Layla due to her necklace, and begins to suspect that she is not the real Layla. The crowd began to turn around, cheering with excitement and thirst for revenge against humanity. Roland and Layla both realize that the army is moving towards the area where Mei Li lives, meaning she'll be in danger. Layla tried to attract the crowd's attention again, but no one looked at her. Layla collapsed to the ground, desperately trying to get someone to listen to her, but the cheers of the army drowned out her cries.